Welcome to all. I am Mar Introini, Global Chair of G100 of Global Networking. And today we are going to address one more of our editions on Break the Wall, where we talk about what is domestic violence. And we have Virginia Rivera for Puerto Rico, that she's one of the moderators in Spanish and also in English. So we are doing one and the other one. We start with awareness, we continue with healing, and then today it will be about prevention. And usually we have many speakers, survivors and not survivors, witnesses of situation of violence or not, members of a society, and a society must take responsibility. And that's why we're here. And this is the way we wanted to address it, from an innovative way, just talking, in exchange, and trying to find solution, influence the state, influence the society in general, even individuals. That's why we are here. And that's why we bring someone so fantastic for us and so special for us. I have met her recently in Women Economic Forum virtually, that she organized in London, a wonderful event. And we met 2 years ago before the pandemics in UK. So we have changed completely the way we work. And here we are. And Krishna Pujara, she will introduce herself. I don't need to do it for her, but she is our proud G100 Global Chair of Anti-Abuse. So we create this format especially for her to be here with us, explain us what we could do on a very intimate conversation. Virginia, I would not say that you are welcome because you are part of the house. I say welcome. How are you, Virginia, from Puerto Rico?
I'm so excited to be here. And like you said, it's a different setup today. Today, we're going to have an intimate conversation of a very, very important topic. We have been sharing all this information, and we usually have these wonderful ladies, right? And it's a different type of sharing. But today, Krishna's going to bring some eye-opening information, because sometimes we think it's so easy, that prevention is so easy, and then we realize that it's very complex. So I am super, super happy to be here sharing with both of you, and of course with you, Mar. So I want to thank Mar, because she discovered me, in the world in Puerto Rico. She's like, you have to be part of Global Networking. And I am very, very excited to be here with her today. So it's so nice to meet you, Krishna.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you both. Thank you very much, Mar, for inviting me, and also Virginia for joining in today. It is amazing to be amongst our soul sisters. It's amazing the work that ALL, that's the All Ladies League, does, and through that the wiki and the She Economy, and there is no end to it. I think it's so good to connect globally. So today we are going to talk about domestic abuse and the causes of domestic abuse and the effects it has on the family. Now, I know it's a very, very serious subject to talk about. So I'll start off with what is domestic abuse? What are the effects on the family? Now, we know continuous physical or emotional domestic abuse can be really, really dangerous to a person's life. The effect it has on the family is the violence and the threat of violence at home. It creates fear and can destroy family environments and lead to the breakup of families. Frequent moving to avoid the abuser, like if somebody is going through domestic abuse, person keeps on moving away from the abuser, and that also has harm on the children and the family. Regular arguments amongst the family, it is also not very, very good. So I will be talking quite a lot about it. I'm glad we have just been joined by Vimalia, so I'll give it back to Mar and we'll be talking more about it. Thank you. All yours, Mar.
Thank you, Krishna. We all know, we're not going to say it today, but we went through health challenge. We could say that health challenge, and even that you are here. You couldn't make it in our last event, but you are here. So we appreciate it on a double standard. Know that you are also here. No, double. We appreciate it. Thank you, Krishna. You are very welcome from India, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Please.
My name is Vimala. I'm from India, from a place called Hyderabad, southern part of India. And I'm glad to join. I was a little late because I was in another Zoom meeting, which is supposed to wind up by 10:15, but they dragged, and I said sorry, and I just dropped and I came in here. So thanks for inviting me, and I love this topic. I'm a coach specially meant for wives, ambitious wives. I'm focusing on marriage. I'm focusing exclusively on ambitious wives because I had a pretty bad marriage. I was married for 10 years. I was single parent for 7 years. And then my husband walked inside my home, and we are living together since last 7 years.
Wow.
So I had gone through a lot of abuse myself. So I can share a lot of insights into this topic because it will not from any Google reading, it will be from my own life.
Thank you,
So
thank you so much for that, and thank you not only for joining us, but to share with us this aspect of your intimacy. I will say is expert, no expert, survivors, not survivors. So we are joining people, gathering people from different profiles that could contribute and enrich what means this dialogue. That maybe we could reach a politician, maybe we could reach someone from the social services or someone special that have lived the same as you. And that's why it's so important that you are here, and all of you are so valuable. Virginia,
thank you. Thank you.
You know,
Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, India, UK, here in Spain, different perspective, different cultures. It's so important for that, and so important for our purposes and our mission as All It Is League Global Networking.
Thank you, Matt. And it's so wonderful to have you both here. The truth is that when we talk about prevention and now thinking about prevention when it comes to the scope of domestic violence, it is an easy word to say. It just stops something from happening, right? It doesn't when you think about it, but then you realize that prevention is challenging because it is a complex situation. Violence doesn't just come from one source. We learn violence from everywhere, from our households, from our schools, from the government. We learn by feeling, by experiencing. So when we expect to talk about prevention, we have to start talking about unlearning, because we've learned so many things as we grow up. Even our children are not born bad. Children are born good, but they learn. And then when we see children that become bullies, when we see children that are not nice to other kids in environments, we wonder, where did they learn that? Because violence is learned. And so, how do we unlearn what has been so ingrained in us? And I think that in Puerto Rico, I'm in the middle of the Caribbean, in the middle of the Americas, from India, Spain is in mar. And when we really think about it, we all have domestic violence as one of the principal ways and reasons that families get affected. Today, poverty is completely linked to domestic violence. When the aggressor is in a home and the person that has the children has to run out, she runs out with whatever she has. Oh, he runs out. I can't, I want to be inclusive. But the truth is that brings poverty, that uncertainty. And then we have to make sure then that, like Mar said, that we have the ear of somebody in government and public policy that can really help us establish new behaviors. When we're in school, when our kids are in school, and that is those kids that can go to school, that can actually socialize. How do we help them learn the correct behaviors of respect, of respecting personal space, of respecting opinions? So prevention may seem easy and just saying, well, just stop it. but it is so much more than that. It's very complex. So, Krishna, I would like to talk to you and start with you, asking you when we see prevention as a learning of what we have seen around us, what behaviors and what should we be doing or looking into in order to bring that, because we have to start that from education, right? But
Yes.
how do we start changing those behaviors?
Oh, thank you, my dear sister. Well, to start off with, I think it's very, very important to know what do we call domestic violence. We call it domestic abuse, and what are the different forms of domestic abuse? Because it's not just about violence, about hitting somebody. The domestic abuse or the domestic violence comes in different forms. So I will talk briefly about what are the different forms of domestic violence, and why do we feel trapped when it happens to us. So we'll talk a little bit about a different forms. So domestic violence is actually a form is either physical, when somebody keeps hitting you all the time, and that is called domestic violence. It can happen not only with your partner, but it can happen also within the family as well, when there's continuous violence in the household as well. There is a form called emotional violence, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, the sexual abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, and also social abuse. So, how do we recognize what abuse is taking place? Is it physical, psychological, sexual, financial, people compare it in so many different forms as to what it is. So I think, like physical, we know when somebody hits you or something, and people hit you, they can break your leg or break anything, and that's physical abuse. But the emotional abuse is very, very serious as well, because if somebody keeps running you down all the time, telling you things like you are useless, you don't have the sense, you are this, you are this, so they're not hitting you, but they are like undermining you, they're making you feel really, really low. And over the years, that can really have an impact on your psychological well-being. And that's when so many people end up going down, they end up having mental sort of breakdown, they feel like confidence, they lose their confidence. So those are the things that we look into. Also, in terms of the social abuse, like if somebody tells you off in front of everybody, like keep undermining you, telling you what you are. So what we will talk briefly about, I hope I'm answering your question, Mark, before we move on and see how can we address and how can we prevent this. Do you have any question to ask me before we move forward? Because this has not only the impact in the families, but also amongst the society. There is an impact in the community, in the impact it has on the children. So perhaps we can talk more on that. Can I come back to you then?
Please, go ahead, Krishna.
Sorry.
Please, go ahead,
Hello,
Krishna.
Emma.
Go ahead.
Yes. So shall we then talk about the effect it has not only within the family, but also on the community, the wider community? Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? I'm audible, yeah? Okay, so let's talk about it's not only affecting the community, but also the children, the effect it has on the children. Like people, women who experience domestic abuse, it's lovely to have Vimla here. I mean, it says 50% have children in their care. Like 50% children and young people don't even have to see the violence to be affected by it. There are so many studies that show that living with domestic violence can cause physical and emotional harm to children and young people in the following ways, like ongoing anxiety and depression, emotional distress, eating and sleeping disturbances amongst children, finding it hard to manage stress, feel guilt or blame themselves for the violence, because children, are the silent victims of domestic abuse. they develop phobias and struggle with going to school and doing schoolwork, use behavior, bullying behavior, or become a target of bullying. They find it difficult concentrating in their work. They find it hard to solve problems, have less sympathy and caring for other children, and young people need to grow up in a secure and nurturing environment where domestic and family violence exists. The home is not safe or secure, and children are scared about what might happen to them and the people they are living with. They end up really wetting their bed. I mean, I'll tell you, there are so many different signs that we need to look into. But what are the 4 signs of abuse? So I'll talk a little bit about how do we see some signs when somebody is going through domestic abuse. Like if you've got some friends, let's say for instance, you'll find that they start withdrawing from you or start withdrawing from the usual activities because they don't want to be seen in the public. There is changes in behavior, such as they become angry, all of a sudden, or aggression, hostility, or hyperactivity, or changes in school performances as well. Uh, the other signs are depression, anxiety, or unusual fears, or a sudden loss of self-confidence. You see, if you see somebody who is really confident at all times and have started changing, so you can actually notice a lot of change if somebody close to you is suffering. Frequent absences from school, which is very, very common signs for children to observe. So what we do, how can we help them? So we in UK, we actually work in partnership with a number of other agencies to see how we can actually bring a change within the community, within the system that we are working in. And I'm really glad that Wimla is here as a survivor, and I'm sure she has shared herself a little bit more about what she has gone through. So we know, 1 woman in 4 experience domestic violence according to the studies. So can you imagine, like we are 4 of us, 1 person would have gone through it. It's life-threatening, it's harm done to individuals, it's harm to our children, technology support abuses, government to specify. I mean, it's a cost to the society and it's a crime which can be prosecuted. So how do we say that, how do we address the domestic abuse? Like physical harm, we know will be a lot of costs, including physical harm, cuts, bruises, injuries. I talked about psychological harm, how it harms the individual's self-esteem, mental health, post-traumatic distress. It can also lead to addictions like alcohol, drugs, eating disorders, self-harm, and harm to our children. I mean, 62% of children in households where domestic violence is happening are already sort of directly harmed. So we really need to do something about it. And how do we bring in prevention? Prevention is something that we look into in terms of a cycle of abuses. Why do we feel, there are times when somebody is going through, and I'm sure people who are listening will know it's a cycle of abuse. What happens? There is always like tensions start building, tensions increase, breakdown of communication happens, victim becomes fearful and feels the need to placate the abuser, and the incident takes place. It's like verbal, emotional, and physical abuse, anger, blaming, like you are the person who is really the cause of it, arguing, threats, intimidation. Those are the cycle of abuse. Then once the incident has happened, the reconciliation takes place again. So the abuser will apologize, give excuses, blame the victim, deny the abuse occurred, or say that it wasn't as bad as the victim claims. So they keep on sort of becoming like a honeymoon sort of time. Then there is a calming situation where incident is forgotten, no abuse is taking place, and the honeymoon phase begins till again the tension starts sort of building up, and again, the cycle of abuse takes place. So, according to the figures, each year, nearly 2 million people in UK suffer some form of abuse. Like out of that, the highest numbers are female victims. Like when you look at last year, there was an increase. I mean, we can blame it due to a pandemic, because people were living together and they could not stand each other, and there was tension, so it was a higher increase. But how can we help? How can we help? So what we do is, when we come across a client, like we work in terms of Mar, do you have any questions before I go and talk
Yes.
about how we can, how can we support and how can we bring in prevention?
I'm afraid. Yes, I have questions. I have
Yes,
two. I have two, and I'm sure Virginia also will have more. Isn't it, Virginia?
Yeah.
I think and Vimala also. Please, sorry, I forgot you. First of all, spiritual abuse. You mentioned spiritual abuse, and for me, something to highlight, because we always take it as the physical abuse, psychological abuse, the consequence on the family, but the spiritual aspect of a person in general is the few aspects that could keep with themselves. For example, their faith. It's something that cannot be polluted. At least from the beginning of my thought, you cannot pollute it. And maybe there is when you rescue some person from that situation, because emotional is broken, physical is broken, but psychological is broken, but not spiritual, no, because they keep that faith to break that wall that is our man. No?
Yes,
so
yes.
Could you please explain more about that?
Okay. Yes, definitely. I'll talk to you a bit more, because spiritual is something that has now been added as a form of abuse. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't have to be spiritual. So I think it can be a misleading word at times. The spiritual is something, is like people use spiritual, the religion, in terms of saying that, oh, I'm praying, I'm this and that. And they use that to abuse the other person, which should not be there. They actually, what they do is like, this is what religion is all about, and you should be doing this and that. And it really doesn't help people, because eventually that leads to, again, person going down, lose self-confidence. And when I say she, it's because women are most of the victims of the spiritual abuse, and then they end up suffering a lot. But the most common one is connected with it is always the financial abuse, because financially a woman is controlled, the partner is controlled, and she's lost without any sort of help or support from the partner. So she stays within that partnership just to make sure that she's safe. Yes. Any question?
Krishna, I would like to know how you, what you have seen in the UK work as prevention methods, because we know that these are behaviors that have to be unlearned. We know that we can start from early on with children, but also we have to talk to men and boys because they were not part of the conversation. Now we have to start involving them in this conversation. Usually we would just talk to women, protect yourself, do this, but we were not talking to the boys and to the men. So now we have to bring them in order to really learn new behaviors, healthy behaviors. How do you see that happening from where you're at?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. A lot has happened over the years. I mean, I've been involved in this field for nearly 30 years now. And I'll tell you, 30 years ago, it was very, very difficult even to have a communication like this. And this is something that is ongoing. I mean, and I think we must remember all the women who have been there in the past, who has tried to make changes and fighting for women's rights, not only women's rights, but also the abuse that women have had to endure, and trying to change the cultural change. And to be honest, domestic abuse is, like Mar said earlier on, it's in all communities, not any specific communities, all over the world. It is the biggest thing. and the abuse continues. So as time goes by, like I said, spiritual abuse has now been added as a form of domestic abuse. So there are a lot of studies that are taking place, and in order to sort of make changes and to make sure that we also get men involved, because believe me, we also get referrals, male referrals as well. And it is very sad because you see, men don't normally talk like they
Right.
say. So even though there are a few of them, but they are also abused within a relationship. And by the time they hit our system, it is very, very late because they end up really breaking down, end up having a nervous breakdown or something. So it's not just women, and so men are also victims, but very few compared to the highest ratio that we have for female, because male, according to what people say, is male are always dominating and they want to control. I think this is also the social construction of gender. So these are the
Right.
changes that need to start at
Exactly.
an earlier age within schools. So in UK, we have started reaching out, raising awareness within schools, within the temples, within the faith places, within community centers, and also within community organizations and at the strategy level. So we all, in UK, we have a strategy for preventing violence against women and girls. Through that, the steps are followed to make sure that people follow that. Now, it is not just one person who can make a change. It has to be done at a wider level. So like I mentioned, the faith forums, the community centers, multi-agency referral systems, working with the police. So what happens is, obviously, when it is an emergency, what do people do? They contact their police straight away when they flee domestic abuse. But that is a situation when it is in the last stages, when a person's life is at risk. So we get referrals from the police, and we make sure that we have access to women safe refugees, which are like a safe house for women and children who are fleeing domestic abuse. So they are kept there in terms of rebuilding their life, making sure that they get all the support and the financial support. And once they get the confidence back, they are ready to leave that safe home to move and integrate back within the wider community. But prevent is what we are going to talk about. So I want to say more about the support that we do for emergency thing. So in prevention, we get referrals, we get self-referrals. Well, when we start raising awareness, we get women accessing our services. Initially, they come up with an excuse about what they are, and they want to make sure. And once they find out that you are a very confidential service, we make sure that we do not give out any information to anybody. So confidentiality is very important for people to sort of contact the service. And once they approach our service, what we do is, when they come and talk about, when they feel comfortable talking about the difficulties they're going through, we carry out needs and skills, needs assessment in terms of finding out what are the needs and what is happening in their personal life. We have a form of support groups where they join in. We have got domestic abuse advocacy workers who work with us, and they make sure that they start, once they get into our system, they start getting one-to-one support. We make sure that we do not share their details with anybody. If the children are involved, then the children are supported. And if we feel that the children are at risk, so with the permission of the woman, we make sure that they are kept into safeguarding children's team to keep on monitoring to make sure that they are supported. But at the same time, the woman also needs to be supported. So we have, in addition to a support group and well-being support groups, we have counseling therapists working for us. They go into the counseling sessions, and they get one-to-one up to 12 sessions by the time they are ready. So weekly counseling sessions. And also our advice worker will look in terms of what their financial resources are. So even though we are a domestic abuse services, we do not plan to split couples away, because you know what happens is, when initially women get to learn about our services, the partners are threatened because they think that if the women will be accessing our services, we will split them apart. And that's something we do not do. We make sure that we use a mediation service to see how things can get better for them and to avoid disrupting the family life. So even though the wife or the partner is living at home with the abuser, we have a safety network in terms of making sure that the victim is protected, and the abuser also knows that if he tries, he or she, because nowadays it's same-sex violence also takes place a lot as well. So we ensure that that safety network is there, all the systems are up to date, and they are protected. Also, if there is early sort of signs of the person not connecting with us, like if they don't turn up for counseling session, or if there is something, then we make sure we have outreach workers, our floating workers, who would connect with them and visit them to see how they are, so the women are safe. So that is very important as part of the prevention measure. But that is only for women, sorry, I know, who are connecting with our service. So what about women? Lots of other women who are not aware of the service and they're still suffering in pain. Yes, Mar, all yours. You had a hand up, yeah?
Yes, it's fascinating all you're telling us, and I would like also to see Vimal, that I'm sure she will have many things to say and
We talk
establish,
about, yeah.
yes, and establish the parallel with UK. You know, that it sounds quite, you know,
Yes.
sophisticated on terms of facilitating that process. No,
Yeah.
what do you think, Vimal? Could you please make that point with India?
What is the exact question?
Whatever you want. That
So
is
in terms of,
it's a relaxing conversation with
Yeah,
you can say whatever you want. I would love to see the parallel with UK and India, because UK is quite sophisticated, and I don't know India, so the floor is yours to see if the same or not.
Yeah, I agree. As Krishna said, UK has sophisticated system. India too has all these sophisticated system in place, but people are not aware, or people will not approach because it is stigmatized. So India too has all sophisticated facilities, but families
Yes.
don't go to that extent of even speaking to the relatives, even speaking to friends, even speaking to any trusted organization, because it is all stigmatized. And tolerance is a key over here. In India, it is trained from childhood that patience and tolerance, and whatever happens in the family, it should not go out of the family, and it is bound to happen, but we have to tolerate and make the marriage work.
Okay, I would like to thank you so much for sharing that, because I want to ask Krishna first. What is the success rate of the programs that you have right now, where families are not being separated, they're living with the aggressor and going through a rehab process? What is the success rate that those families get rehabilitated and can live together? And then I'm going to go back to Vima. Is there a success rate?
Virginia, thank you very much. And I also want to talk to Vimla about yes. Right. The success rate for us, for women who approach us at an earlier stage, the success rate is quite high, around 80%. But as we all know, that domestic abuse can stop for a while, and any triggers will spring it back again. So within that family hold, whatever are the triggers, we don't know. I mean, we know it can be anything, either a bereavement or something can trigger it. And I think pandemic last year was one of the highest one, where people had bereavement and then sort of grieving within the household, and then going back into what has happened in the past, and will bring up more arguments and more sort of domestic abuse. Yeah. So okay, do you want to ask Vimla before I go and
Yes,
ask the question to
thank you.
Vimla as well?
Yeah, Vimala, I wanted to ask you. You just said And thank you so much for sharing that with us. That in the Indian household, right? In the households in India, what happens there, it doesn't leave your house. I would like to know if there's a change in behaviors now where you're starting to see that people are talking more about it or having, because I know that it's not looked upon correctly, but do you see that there's now opening up some new communication, or it's still that same way?
No, it is opening up, but it depends upon the status in the society. Probably the high class is opening up, the middle class is not opening up, and the lower strata just leave their home and they move out, or they don't even talk about it. It depends upon the status of the family.
Okay,
All
very
the
good.
facilities what Krishna was sharing, it is available in India as well. Me, after becoming a coach, I have invited so many ambitious wife. I have quoted, sugar coated the word ambitious wife, but the meaning is ambitious wives are going through a lot of challenges because they are
Absolutely.
misunderstood. So I have sugar coated it, so that wives will not have any inhibitions to come and join and share their challenges. But even then, I recently even had a case where she is one of the topmost recognized manager of a company who is going through some domestic violence, who was referred to me through another source, but she was refusing to take help.
Yes. So, it's happening, but it's happening here, but it's not really going into, and this is something that we have to continue talking about, and opening little spaces, even little spaces, because I think both UK and India are putting in the work. But as we see, it's like, it's such a strong infrastructure that to get through is so hard, but we have to continue talking about prevention. And it starts from the,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Virginia. The problem here in India is it is all about families, respect, and reputation, and we are responsible to hold it tight.
absolutely.
So talking it loud means I have to let down somebody
Yes.
who is the father of my children, or we have a family, close knit family network. We don't want to let down the person in front of everyone. Probably the person might change and come back again, and there's a lot of ifs and buts.
Yes.
So there is no extreme hatred allowed. It is, there is a possibility of things changing. So let me try again, let me try more, let me be patient more. These are the connotations given to not being loud about it.
Right, right.
In that line, it seems that prevention is more important than awareness,
Seriously.
because under that scenario, it seems that the people are aware, but they don't pass that stage of going to justice or going to social services, isn't it, Krishna?
Yes, I totally agree with you. But like coming back to what Vimla just said, she's talking about family honor, which is called Izzat, family honor, and you get a lot of honor-based crimes, not only in India but all over the world. Honor-based crimes are the biggest crimes, and they actually kill people in there because of their family values, family culture. And it's not just within Indian people, it's with all different community groups. There are people who are so brainwashed into their religion as well, that they feel that you should not do this, you should not bring shame to your family. And I think one of this social construction of gender is when, I'll just talk briefly about India, about you're brought up and you are said that once you get married, that's it, that is your life, you go what you have to do. This is how parents send their daughters off, like you have to go and do and deal with your life, now we are no longer our responsibility. And so if the female really suffers or something, there are so many women who ended up committing suicides because they could not continue living in that dangerous lives. So it's very sad, and we get a lot of referrals. We work a lot in partnership with organizations all over the world. So even though we have, I say we have a sophisticated system, but it isn't. I think all countries have a sophisticated system. It's how we as organizations or how we as people gel in together to see how we can refer. Like for instance, I'll give you an example of a woman who has accessed our service 2 years ago, and she was a migrant from India, married and came into this country. So she's a migrant in this country. Now, obviously, by the time she came to us, she had continuous psychological and physical and financial abuse with her partner for nearly 8 months. So when we finally had her through the doctors, she was already in the mental health hospital who had committed suicide to kill herself. Now, this is a lady in her mid 40s, wanted to kill herself. So working with her, and we have worked with her for over 2 years to make sure that we sort of change her lifestyle. Now, her story was totally different. She had been married earlier back home, and she went through a divorce, and the family didn't want disowned her. She started living independently, sort of working and trying to earn a living, and then eventually she became independent, and the family ties became closer to her again. And then again, family friend approached her and arranged her had an arranged marriage. So she thought like, okay, fine, this is now a new opportunity for me to leave the country and move into UK. I've got this lovely man who is here to marry me, and he's from this similar background or whatever. But the man who she had just met and she was willing to spend the rest of her life with came into this country and turned out to be the biggest abuser. And like he used to spit in her food, saying that you have to eat what I tell you. She could not use her IT, no laptop, nothing. So for us to do a work with her, like getting her out of that mental health situation, and it's very sad. She would not even eat. Like when we had her in our system, she had not even had any food. The mental health team were trying to make sure that she starts eating, but she was scared that if there is his spit, you know what I mean, like spitting in the food, how can she eat? She could not touch her keyboard. And I'll tell you, after counseling, continuous, regular one-to-one work with her, asking her to start working with us as a volunteer to see how she can do all her work. And slowly but surely, we learned so much about herself. She was a professional dancer back home, and she had forgotten all about it. She is now our ambassador promoting cancer awareness with us. And she raises a lot of awareness, and she feels there is a light at the end of the day. You do not have to suffer. And she's come out quite beautifully. I was hoping to ask her to join in today, but she was busy doing some other good work. But this is just one case where she went through family stigma, she went through mental health, she went through abuse, all that all together. And it's not easy. And I'll tell you, when somebody goes through that, yes, Vimla, you
Yeah.
can ask.
Most of the time, people don't realize that this is an abuse. It is.
Yeah.
They think it's a culture of the family.
Right.
It is part of the family culture, and it is not considered to be an abuse at all. It takes a lot of time to realize for that particular person. For me, predominantly, I would like to speak about women. For the woman to understand this is an abuse, it takes, even an educated woman takes a lot of time to understand this is an abuse. They think it's culture, that
You're
think
so
it is
right, Vimla.
this is a partner's family's culture. So so the women thinks I need to take time to understand the culture and gel with it. The woman puts a lot of an effort to be part of the other family's culture, and takes a lot of time to realize, oh my god, this is an abusive culture. Because when she's getting married, the parents tell the child that you have to go and gel with the culture of your partner.
Of course.
But there is no orientation about the partner's family culture or their legacy. We don't know. So when you go
yeah, I totally agree with you, Vimla. But then we are talking about one set of community which would expect that from girls to do. But then there are other, like if you look into the tribal families, and not just talking about India, but even in Africa and other parts of the world. I mean, they get married at such a young age, and the expectation from them is very, very high. And to be honest, they suffer so much in silence. And those are the silent victims who lead throughout their life, suffering, being abused, being treated as slaves. And yet, you know, they don't even realize what they're going through and their lives end, you know. Yes, Virginia.
I wanted to say, and I want to thank you both for bringing such poignant stories, and I appreciate so much, Krishna, you talking about one of the participants in your program who is a survivor, and I want to thank you, Bimala, for telling us about the everyday, the real, because you may read one thing, but when you live it, it's different. I would like to know, Bimala, in your opinion, what can be done? What little steps can we start doing in order to start prevention? You know, like before it actually starts, where can we start changing the way of thinking? How little? I mean, it may be a tiny baby step, but what can be done right now?
I have loads of ideas, loads of
We want to hear
not
those.
not only ideas, lot of anxiety behind this topic,
Go on, share it. Share it
lot of
with us.
people. Why can't people do something? Where are these people who will do something about it? Okay, number one is in a major way what is impacting. I will speak from my country's perspective. Okay, what is predominantly happening over here is the movies are influencing our people a major way. They are continuing to keep the audience in the drama life. Movies are the, even yesterday I saw one scene which again made me very angry. Whether you're a police, you're a woman has to be in your place. Even if a person is a rowdy,
Yeah.
he is a man, he can behave like that. You are a
Yeah.
policewoman, reputable policewoman, but you are a woman, so you have to take that place. These kind of dialogues are still in the movies, which is impacting the youngsters. So whatever education you do in the school, they are impacted by movies a lot. So one major impact has to make. I don't know how we are going to start there, because most of the time they live in the TV rooms. Most of the time they are inside the home watching movies, and their heroes are there. So whatever school teachers say, whatever education we bring in, movies are the greatest impact. Krishna, you agree with me?
It's the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally, totally, Vimla. It is very, very important in terms of what sort of positive messages we send to the society. And
Yeah.
how do we bring the changes? Like earlier, we said prevention starts from the house, from your own family, how you bring up your children, how they're brought up. And I mean, they should not be treated separately, because everybody, whether it's a female or a male, it should be treated equally. And I think that's one of the reasons. I can tell you one of the other things that we have is the not only UK, but other countries do, it's trafficking of women, how women and children are trafficked all over the world. So by the time we get these women in our system who have been abused continuously, they are really serious mental health issues with what torture they've gone through. And they don't have recourse to public funds. When I say no recourse to public funds, I mean they don't have any money or any financial support. So they are stuck within the system. But over the years, when it gets too much, they run away. And by the time they run away, we get the whole ring of about 30, 40 women all together, and how we work. And I'll tell you, it's the most tormenting sort of time when we come across these particular victims who have managed to flee the torture they've been into for a year or 2 years or a few years. But the support is there. And not only in UK, and I'm talking about all over the world, it is happening. And I think we need to look out for that. But in terms of prevent, like Wimla said, sorry, I'm diverting back. In terms of prevent, with what Wimla said, is the films make a very bad impact on the youngsters. Now there are three different castes like high class, middle class, low caste, and they're all the mentality. And like I said, it's this thing about male dominance, about we are the best, and there are so many issues around it, and we only get to hear few of them. But it goes on in the villages. It goes on where men make decisions on women's life. If somebody blames or points a finger that this woman is not good, then the male will all get together. So there are so many different issues, and how do we make a difference? And I think we have already started making a difference by being part of this conversation in terms of how we reach out to the communities all over the world in terms of making a difference. And I'm sure whoever is watching will be able to sort of digest what are the support systems available and how we can sort of work globally. And I think with my remit as a global anti-domestic abuse, I've started making connections with women in the other parts of the world to see how we can approach them. And I've, like we have now, like October is a domestic abuse awareness month. So there will be a lot of domestic abuse awareness going on. We have already started our campaign to raise awareness about domestic abuse, even though UK is there. Like you said, we have got a very good developed system, but there is still a need to increase more awareness because the cases are very high compared to the other countries, because the recorded cases. So that would be in October. Then November is the White Ribbon Day, which is actually a time when we get male to partner with us, and how we raise awareness in terms of white ribbon. So men start wearing white ribbon, saying that they follow the good practices and they support that women should not be abused. So that's again in the 25th of November. So watch out for these dates, and we will be talking more about prevention on that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to say something, Ma?
Yes, we are going to say
Hi,
that
Ma.
date, and I have a reflection because.
Can you hear me? Hi, ladies.
Yes, perfect.
Sorry, has Mar gone a bit quiet?
Yes, you could hear me well. Yeah? No?
Yeah.
No. Let me see. Yes.
I can hear. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And it's like a reflection, a question.
Yes.
It's a bit of everything, because when we talk about
I can hear you. I think
domestic violence.
Yeah.
when we talk about domestic violence, we talk about something global, and it's still a question for me if we really can address it from a global perspective.
I think you're cracking.
Oh yes.
No.
Oh, okay. So
Krishna's network is problem, not yours.
Okay, it's Krishna. Okay, please. Okay, when we talk about domestic violence, I really question the idea of being global, because we have different religions, different traditions that impact the family. So we could address it on the same way, because if we talk about global, we have to address it on the same, exactly the same policies, yet the same, and applying the same law for every country. Think of that. That is global. And we are global networking, so that's why I am particularly giving a particular importance of that. So where relies the problem when we say global or national? When we have a national problem of domestic violence, we could address it on the same way. India, UK, we could do the same. Puerto Rico in Latin America, they have very high rates on death. Because not talk about domestic violence, talk about death, because that is the way we describe it from Latin America. No? So we could address it from a global perspective. Where relies the problem? Where relies the limits in terms of family? When Bimala says that the family don't want to go to justice, is that a limitation or not? We could address it, because if we create the law and the services, they will not use it. So we have to address it from a different focus, from a different perspective. And one of that is education for kids. That is one part. But then we have this education for adults that they give loads of importance when we want you to move forward. No? Because if not, if we try to work from next generation, which is fine and very important, because it's like a tree, but we need to be focused on the trees that are already grown up. And they are polluted the rest of our nature. No? So when we do that, where is the limit? Do we have limits on that, on the tradition of the family? How much the state can interfere? And that is an issue on individual freedom. How much the state, from the external aspect, we could interfere on the intimacy of the family. And that is a reflection, a question, and everything. I think so. Yes, Vimali, Virginia, Krishna, I need your take on that, all of you, please.
Okay, so I just want to say that going to what you're saying, your reflection on your question, in the real world, and I think it is so hard to really, we're global networking, but it is so hard to see it from a global standpoint. We all know that it's not right. We all know that. But we also know and understand that each family, each culture, each honor system is different. So prevention can and should look different everywhere. I think that in every neighborhood, in every community, in every state or county, we have to really do it the way that we think is going to be most effective in that particular. And I think that one person alone may think I can't make a difference here, but I think it's in the collective, and the collective is what Krishna is doing. The collective is ambitious women, which is what Bimala is doing. The collective is what we are doing in global networking. I think we all, from where we are at, we can start contributing, but we have to be very realistic that it's different everywhere. We just can't, across the board, say this is what's going to work, because it just can't. At this point, I think we're still at every neighborhood, every family, every group every tribe has to do what works best for them. But how far can they go? How far, when does it infringe on somebody else's life or somebody else's liberty or freedom? So it's a great conversation to have. And I think it's a reflection and question. But definitely, I think that right now where we're at, maybe it's individual in how one person can make a difference, but it takes some of us, a bunch of us, to make it happen, like your ambitious women working and in your case too.
Thank you, Virginia. Brilliant. Yes, Bimala.
We are doing a lot of postmortem work. Abused people are abusers. They have been abused in their life. So more than women, men need help. Men need actual help, but they don't realize they have a problem. That's a problem here.
Right.
They don't feel that they have a problem. So my analysis of the whole thing and individually contributing to this aspect is when I go out to the men and say, hey, you have a problem, I need to help you so that you stop abusing, they're going to be very defensive.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I'm taking a very psychologically a different perspective of the entire scenario, because I have a thorough understanding, because of my personal experience as well, that who abuses, they have been abused in their life. That is why they are abusing somebody else. So they need to be given a very effective communication tools, psychological tools for them to heal themselves before they get into contact, especially in marriage. Before they get married, every individual has to be given an effective communication tool, or they should be healed before they get married, so that they have enough courage, enough tools to handle the future. They don't need to forget about their past, but they ensure that they heal themselves before they get married, and they are equipped with effective tools to handle any kind of family communication or whatever it is. Hope I make my point very clear.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely clear. It's what we need. Exactly what we need. Krishna, the state, the society, or individuals defending their intimacy. What is best?
Yes.
What we have to do? What we have more power? The state have the right to exercise that power. The individual have the right to keep that tradition, to family tradition. They have the right or not.
Well, there is no such a thing as have the right or not have the right. People make their own rights. Families make their own rights because they feel that they are the high and mighty. But I think one thing they really need to realize, and also a victim needs to realize, is we all get only one life. So why not have the best of? Nobody has a right to abuse anybody, either physically, financially, psychologically, or emotionally, or spiritually, to sort of shatter somebody's life, because you're ruining somebody's life so badly that it ends, they end up in a mental hospital, or they end up killing themselves, or they become like lose confidence and all that. Why should you do that? And I think people like this should be made aware that this is not right. So, but some people's culture thinks that by controlling somebody, this is their way of living, and that is not acceptable. And I think people going through that need to realize that they should not put up with it. So raising awareness is very essential, because there are people who don't even identify or realize that that is abuse that they're going through. We haven't touched base on elderly abuse. There are so many elderly people in the world where they don't even realize that they think that the children are looking after them. But what it is, it's the financial abuse. They take away all the finances away from the elderly people, and then they start controlling them, and they don't have a choice about what life they want. And there is so much going on, like they feel that they are at that stage of their life and they need someone to look after them, and yet they are abused at their last stages of life. So there are so many things we can do. And just in terms of your reflection, Mar, we all have a life. We give options to people. We cannot force people to make decisions. So we empower, like our slogan is empowering women to make informed choices. So any women that come to our system, we never tell them to leave their abusive partners. We never tell them to do this or that. We give them options, and we tell them, you decide what you want to do, because it's not good to encourage anybody to leave their relationship, because when you get women into the system, they are so used to being abused. We have had cases where women who have gone into a refuge safe home to stay, and after a few weeks they want to go back to their partners, and we allow them to go back, because if you can't stop them. They're so used to being abused that when they come into an independent way of living, they are missing that abuse and they want to go back. And and then the history repeats again and again. So there has to be a way where we can make a difference, and together globally start working locally within your areas where a lot of domestic abuse work is taking place, and how can you make a campaign and reach out within your local region, and then the safety net sort of becomes bigger, and you can do that. And I'm sure it is possible. We have been campaigning for years. So we normally use International Women's Day, which is the 8th of March, to raise awareness and make sure that people are aware, and also celebrate how far we have come since we started campaigning. Then this October is a domestic awareness raising month. November is a White Ribbon Day, and in between the awareness continues. If there is something that comes up within the media or something, the campaign starts. Like last year, we knew there was a lack of resources, a lot of domestic abuse was taking place. So straight away, government is approached, and how they put in more funding to make sure that support is there. Yeah. And I think it can happen in all the countries. Sadly, some countries do not offer financial support, but we have a port where if anybody approaches us, we give them the support anywhere in the world, and we are happy to do that. Sorry, Vimla, you raised your hand.
Yeah.
My question is, for a very long time we are sensitizing only the women, but there is an imbalance. We are not educating the men who are causing
Exactly.
it.
Absolutely.
For many years we have empowered women, but there is an imbalance. The people who are doing it are not getting the, so there is some kind of, I want to share my empathy for the men who doesn't realize
Totally.
what's happening, and there's no, they're focused only in building their career, and they're not oriented on all these heart related aspects. It's only for them this, nothing over here. And we isolate them, and we are not giving them any tools. We are not educating them, but we expect them to be behaving well with women. So I feel that it's high time that we educate men in a very good sense, take it in a very positive stride than
I
giving a
agree.
negative connotation to the entire stuff. And I need help from all of you as to, do we have a scope to educate men, not giving a negative meaning to it, but sensitizing them about all these, even the trees, as Mar said, they also need education, though they might resist in the beginning, they might be defensive about getting educated on this, but they at least 20% will start accepting that they need this kind of orientation.
I agree. I agree that we have to start incorporating these voices. We hardly ever incorporated men in our conversations about this. So when we want to talk about healthy masculinity, they don't even know what that looks like because this is
Seriously,
what they have
seriously.
learned. So to model respect and equality in a relationship, that has to be taught. You have to see that. So I totally agree with you. One of the, I think, key things in prevention is bringing the men into our conversation, and giving them the power and feel empowered to say, this is why I feel this way. Everybody expects me to be the Superman, the strong man, the man that does everything. And maybe I don't feel that way, but we don't give them that opportunity. So I completely agree with what you're saying.
And follow Virginia thought. This is the spirit and philosophy of all ACD Global Networking, because we always bring men to our stage of dialogue, because we say we need the complicity. We know that there are men, that there are many men that agree with gender equality, and they support us. They don't know how to do it, but they support us. So this is a new model of feminism, without confrontation, just to make them all in. And in domestic violence is key, because they will approach another man better than any woman.
Yeah, if we don't include men in the movement, if we don't make them allies, we're never really going to get that other side. So we have to continue to grow and make sure that they become allies in a movement that really impacts all of us, not only women. It impacts families, everybody. So I think that we have a lot of work to do, but if we recognize this and we start incorporating, like Mar said, we will see a different generation coming through. And I think we're going to, a narrative, like you said, movies, media, the narrative can also change when we include men. So I completely agree. And that is also
when Krishna is focusing on the extreme cases, my focus is on the regular daily day-to-day living normal families, where there is a lot of scope for good role modeling for the children. The fathers can do a better role modeling for the children, because they are not equipped with these kind of interactions and tools and techniques. They are little lost as to what to do for the next generation. They are having the outdated tools with them, and they're just carried away by the day-to-day dramas. That is all. So when Krishna is focusing on the extreme cases, my focus is on the normal families, so-called normal families, where men have to contribute a lot in making a proactive effort to be a healthy masculinity, demonstrating healthy masculinity, demonstrating a good husband role model, father role model, where we can educate men on the latest tools and educate our at least a basic emotions and anxiety that we have as women. So that is my final talk on this.
I have to establish this what Krishna and Vimala say. There are extreme cases, and there are these middle cases that is not physical, maybe it's emotional or spiritual. They're difficult to identify. That justice has a very weird intervention if they do it. So we have two stages, and I think these spaces, as we are doing here, are key, absolutely key for these middle cases, when they're inviting people to reflect, and to reflect within the organization, within the friends, with men and with women. That this is I think is two parts of the same.
Because if this is not addressed here, it will land up there. In future, it is going to land up there.
Yeah. Totally. And I believe the work needs to happen at a low impact and intervention. Sorry, I discussed the extreme cases, but we deal with everybody. Our doors are open to everybody. And I think, especially, domestic and family violence tears lives apart. 1 in 3 women experience physical or sexual violence, or both, caused by someone very close to them, actually. Yeah. And it affects women, children, and the family and the community, and it has big personal, social, and economic impact. We were talking about the effects on the victims, and I just want to highlight that again. I know I've talked that briefly, but it can lead to death, illness, injury, and disability. Domestic and family violence is the leading cause of death, illness, and disability for women aged under 45, because of a lot of abuse, like emotional and psychological trauma. I mean, the devastating impact on an individual's physical, mental, and emotional health, including depression, shame, anger, and suicide. I mean, the other one is homelessness. Nearly 1/3 of people seeking help from homelessness unit say domestic and family violence is an issue, and that is why they're homeless. Use of alcohol or other drugs to deal with the pain, because people get addicted to drugs to keep away from accepting that there is a problem. And also physical health injuries and problems which may not get medically treated can lead to a lot of psychological impact. I mean, in terms of how can we make this world a better place for all of us to live? We need to make a change. There are issues. We cannot have one particular model to help everybody. It has to be a different ways, because all different communities have got different needs, different social issues, different culture. How do we make a change? So that's why I said initially, work within your country in terms of what are the needs, identify the gaps that are there, and together bring it up at a global level and see how we can we do a lot of work with United Nations as well, in terms of making a change at the United Nations level, and see how we can sort of continue. But one important message is for any women or anybody who is listening, whether it's a male or a female, we continue highlighting women, I know, but also male are suffering as well. So please, please, please do not suffer in silence, because we do get a lot of male victims as well who do not want to go through a hassle of going through a divorce, because they are worried about giving away a lot of money financially to the partner or something, or do not want to lose a number of things. But there is always a way forward, a middle way in terms of how you can make lives better. And the final message is, please seek help or support and go to a confidential service where you know that people will not be talking behind your back or discuss your case to anybody else, because that is very important in making a difference to so many lives. Yes.
In the end, Krishna, how important is for everything, including domestic violence, to be part of organization for women, because they will feel safe in organization for women, and they could get information, and they will open their mind. So yes. I think this opportunity of COVID helped in terms of domestic violence. It was worst because we know that the abuser they get in their house, so they get trapped there. But also they open a very important window, a new landscape of hope, of a new reality where the people could be more connected and reflect alone. Yeah, because in that process is alone. And with Vimala say if they're not aware, if they don't realize, or if they realize but they feel shame of saying, maybe if they make their own thoughts, their own reflections, they could find their way out, the way they want it, and not something external. So yeah. Please, we need to do a wrap up. So you make the final. You say now I will ask you both to do it. And I don't know if you know that we have, Virginia know that we know on our hand, if you have a pen, do it. If you want it, yes. If you want it, because it's our way to say break the wall and say no, and say, no, this is our message, our modest message, but very ambitious in terms of the goal that we wanted to achieve.
Yes.
So what should we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And
I don't have a pen, so I say no more to abuse, but I don't have a no here. Sorry. I wish
have
I had a pen
you
here, but
put your hand.
no.
Put your hand. And
okay, no, my no is not visible.
No to abuse. And I can see your eyes. Lovely.
great.
Great. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for your patience with me. But I would love to be part of this ongoing communication and
Wonderful.
reach out globally. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you once again, and happy to share more details when asked again. Thank you. once again.
Absolutely. Virginia, Vimala, please your wrap up.
Well, I just want to say that there are some really great opportunities to continue the conversation, but the conversation has to change. And we have to be courageous and we have to be brave many times to change it. There are harmful norms around masculinity and femininity, and we have to start changing that. There isn't a certain way to be a man. There isn't a certain way to be a woman. We're humans, and that is the most important thing. We need to love and protect each other. I had you, Mala.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I could feel in the conversation. I wasn't expecting this kind of me buying in this and involving myself in this topic. I was very, I love this topic. One takeaway will be I want all of us to be as Virginia said, we are all human beings. Nobody intend to abuse anybody. It is something that has happened in their childhood that has made them like that. So we should be empathizing with the abuser as well as abused, and make sure that we give the right. We take responsibility in helping both of them, the abuser and the abused. And we have a lot of work to do. And I'm very glad to be part of this group. And whatever I have to contribute, I will definitely do it. Because I feel I go with Virginia, they are humans ultimately. So since there's a lot of work to be done, we have less time. We are focusing only on the abused, not the abuser. But anyway,
Yeah.
both of them need
And I
help.
think-
That is what.
Thank you.
Totally
Thank you so
agree.
much. You're very welcome. Yes, Krishna, please.
No, it's okay. I know. I just wanted to touch point of where Vimla mentioned about the abuser, but I think we talked a lot about prevention, and I think prevention comes not only for female but also for male and children as well. So it's for the wider community as well. And on that note, thank you once again for sharing your thoughts. And I think it's a very important subject. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so
bye-bye.
much. Nima, you are welcome now to the next editions. Vimala, so you are part now. You are in. We are all in. You are part now. So thank you. It was really enrich all your thoughts. Virginia, always fantastic. And Krishna, thank you so much. You were our special guest. We were very much looking forward in more than 1 month.
I know. I've been looking forward. I mean, sorry about last month. I mean, I had an emergency and I could not join in at a short notice. And I was so prepared for that, but it's finally happened. And so thank you once again for your patience. Yeah.
Break that wall. Break that wall of the challenge.
Thank you so much.
No.
Thank
No.
you. Bye-bye.
No,
Thank
thank you
Bye.
all, and don't
Bye.
be scared to break that wall. See you.
Definitely.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.